19th, 2009, Development Operations Committee meeting.
Are you on?
Roll call vote.
Are you on?
Is that on?
Turn line one on.
Got it on here. I don't know, which one is it?
The bottom row. Did the switch on in the back?
Yeah.
On here?
No.
No, if the anxiety to do that, you
Oh.
want the machine down.
Check it out, Leo.
Try this. Larry, try this.
There you go.
Okay, there we go. There we go.
Yeah. You know which one it
Call the Development Operations Committee meeting on March 19th, 2009 to order. We'll call.
Mr. Nicholas, Mr. Whitus,
Present.
Ms. Menard, Mr. Hess,
Present.
Mr. Enns,
Present.
Mr. Lejess,
Yes.
Mr. McConnell, Mr. McLaren,
Present.
Ms. Polk,
Present.
Mr. Bowen,
Present.
Mr. Tripp,
Present.
Mr. Vickery,
Present.
Mr. Yates,
Present.
Mr. Bossert,
Present.
Mr. Lear.
Present.
We have no public comment this morning, so approve the minutes for February 19th. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes? Mr. Tripp? Mr. Polk? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Welcome, Mr. Hart here this morning, so Bob, do you have anything for us?
Yes, I have a few things. I've got a list of work orders. I'm gonna start giving you this on a monthly basis. It'll give you the work orders and the locations and what type of work orders they are. Just get a report for you guys to look at. I've got last year's numbers and the first 3 months of this year. That's last year. That's 2000. The single sheet is from 2008, all the work orders from January through November. I'm doing it by the fiscal year instead of the calendar year so we can keep track of it. The 3-sheet one is this year, so it's the first 3 months of this year. And I've broken them down into 2 different categories. Electrical, HVAC, plumbing, security, miscellaneous stuff, TVs, microwave, hair clippers, silly stuff. Emergency fire, which would be sprinklers and pull stations, office equipment, yard, which would be mowers, trimmers, things like that, paint, sign, and then the oddball cleaning that we gotta do. I didn't want to get overly specific, but I wanted to break it down enough where you understood it. If you look at the numbers from on the single sheet from last year, there were quite a few work orders done at the jails, and I wanted to make sure everybody understood why there were so many at the jails. It's a 24/7 operation. The number of units inside in the building are twice as much as anybody else, if not more. I don't have the number of toilets, doors, all that stuff specifically, but if you've ever been in a jail, there's 3 times as many doors. There's 400 toilets, and it's just. And then plus the clientele, the inmates, they go out of their way to break things. So that's why those numbers are so high in those buildings. So, and we're going to start documenting better. We're going to have more work orders. And these are just requests from them. These are not PMs. Those are just requests from the specific buildings. Is there any questions about that?
Mr. Hart, if you could just give us an overview on what your process is. Maybe somebody here that don't understand what that is. How does somebody go about and request work for you guys to complete?
Each building has gets work orders, and I'll bring you some, I should have brought some today, I didn't think about it. But to get a work order for them, it's a work order request, and then that they describe what they want, the location, and it tells who needs it, and then we go out, work on it, we write on the work order what we did, we replaced the light bulb, replaced the ballast, and then we write the completed date on it, and then we turn it in, they get a copy of it back, and we keep the copy for our records.
Mr. Chair.
Is there a cost analysis on any of this? Recording and
I'm working on that.
follow through?
I don't have that yet, but I'm
Okay.
working on that
How
right
about another question along the same line? Is there a computerized preventive maintenance program of any kind?
It's not really computerized, there's a different form, and we're trying to get it in the computer, but it's done manually now. We use Outlook as the trigger times, but it's really done manually.
You could help yourself a lot.
Oh, I would,
If
yeah.
you know, hand a sheet to somebody and they go do this.
And they make programs for that, I just haven't
Yeah,
got that far
right,
yet.
okay, I just wondered how we were coming with
Yeah,
it.
I'm working on it.
Mr. Boston.
I see on last year's summary, a huge number of the old detention center electricals calls. Is that just because of the age of the building and
No, it isn't. It's twofold. Part of it's the age of the building, but the majority of it is the inmates don't like to have the night lights on. So they bang on the lenses, they beat on the walls and shake the bulbs loose, and it causes us to have to go back and fix them. So we're trying to, I wouldn't say idiot-proof it, but that's what we're trying to do with some of them. We're working on that. But there's not going to be a total preventive of that. They're going to keep breaking stuff. That's what they do.
Mr. Lance.
How is your system set up? Do you have somebody that's overcharged in each building? You know, I mean, I know you can't be at every building. How is your system set up?
We've kind of assigned an individual mechanic in each one of these buildings to kind of be the point person to contact these people. Now, the courthouse usually calls me, but like the jails, at the old jail it's Jerry Gregoire, at the new jail it's Tom Wrenchin, and then most of the other buildings, they just contact me. They do have a point person out there to deal with it. And in this building, it's usually Randy and Rich, they deal with it in this building.
Ms. Bernard.
Thank you, good morning, Mr. Chairman. As far as, if you could just clarify for me, or refresh, who handles highway, animal control, and the health department, how does that work?
They have their own budgets for maintenance. We do a little bit of mowing for the animal control, and we help Julie out a little bit, but they have their own maintenance budget, so we do nothing there.
Okay, so you don't go to do any of the calls?
Occasionally, a health department will call if they got something they can't figure out, we'll go look at it, but they usually handle it themselves.
Okay, and what other areas do we have that you do mowing at besides animal control?
Well, we do the courthouse, the new jail, the old jail area, the annex, and that's it.
Okay, and I'm just wondering, this is kind of just to throw out there, I think it's called xeriscaping, where you landscape based on, you know, local climates, things like that. And I'm wondering if that might be something, it's not like it's a top priority, but something to examine down the road to see if, instead of having the conventional green turf with chemicals and pesticides you have to apply and all that good stuff, if we could maybe look at some xeriscaping. Is that the right word? Chris, you're the,
It's the right
you're
word,
the
but
green
that
guy.
does work around here.
Does it? Why not?
Xeriscaping is typically without water.
Okay, there you go, thanks.
Xeriscaping is without water, so
Arizona.
it's typically done in Arizona, desert-like climates.
Okay.
Around here, it would equate to taking out all the turf and putting down rock or some sort of aggregate. It would create a long-term weed maintenance problem, much bigger than a mowing turf would be.
Oh, well, what about, just one other question, what about using native plantings? Prairie grasses, things like that? I'm just curious.
As far as in the typical
For
yard area,
landscaping, yeah.
there's lots of stuff going into native plantings and all that stuff. I mean, that's kind of the forefront with the new prairie movement and all
Right.
that stuff. As far as using prairie grasses in the yard, most native grasses are in the 3 to 7 foot height range, and you'd have to burn them off
Right.
and stuff
Okay.
like that.
Thanks.
Not
Just
real
thought I'd
practical.
ask. Thank you. Just thought I'd ask.
16, please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I see on these reports, these are very nice, by the way, Bob, kind of helps give us a little idea of some of the work orders and that. Is the public safety line there, is that kind of just an overall view, or?
That is actually the sheriff's administration building, that's what that's.
Oh, okay,
That's
very
called,
good.
it's really called the public safety.
And then
building.
okay, that makes, I know better than that, I guess. The next question would be, I see in the VAC, like, in 2008, you had no work orders at all, huh?
None that were recorded, and that's part
Okay.
of the deal. Since I've been here, we've been trying to document a lot more. We used to do a lot of, if you walked in, can you take care of that for us? And we'd go do it and not document it. I'm starting to keep track of everything.
Okay.
Mr. Bassett.
Just springing this on you, Bob, I'm sorry. Just for the benefit of the committee and just your department staffing levels, how many maintenance or mechanics and how many custodians?
Yeah, we have 5 mechanics, maintenance mechanics. We have 11 custodians. We have a courier, or 1 courier, 1 painter, and 1 administrative assistant. 19 total.
Is that enough?
No.
Give him an open.
Did you expect anything else?
Well, I think this report, like Chairman Bossert said, this is extremely helpful for us, just to see what your duties are and what you're doing, and so we appreciate that. We can keep that going every month.
It will be a monthly report, and I also want to start breaking down the financials too. I want to show you what our service, what buildings got the service contracts and all that good stuff. It'll be helpful to you. And helps me. I mean, when I'm standing here saying I need more money, maybe it'll justify it. So that's part of the process.
Good.
Okay. Next thing I have is pictures at the courthouse for the ceremony. They were talking about getting some pictures of the judges. I contacted Judge Gould by email. He's in Florida for the winter, and he didn't have any. I talked to Clark Erickson. He was unaware of where we could get some. So I'll keep working on that. I'll get with the Iroquois County, and I'll get with the Historical Society. We can make that somewhere. There's got to be something somewhere. I just got to find the right person. You guys had asked last week about a pull-down screen for this. And I looked into it, and the cost of the pull-down screen that would hang from the ceiling would be about $190 for one very similar in that size. And it's not a big deal to do. The question is, where do you want it? Where would the projector be at? Would it be on that bench there, or how would we go about this?
Set them up here.
Do you want it at an angle so everyone can see it? Is that what we're gonna do?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Defer to Mr. Duval.
Just gonna give you some historical, where they usually put it, you can put it wherever you want to. We end up shifting everybody around, and it usually ends up being around where Leo is, around there, only because you have to be back far enough where it'll project just at the right size. There is no great place to put it, and it's kind of been different every time, but it's usually generally around there, and then we ask people to move around. I don't know if you've ever done it in a full board meeting, because I don't know if there's enough room to move people around. We've gone through this issue for like 8 years. We've never been able to configure it right because of this. I was here 25 years ago when it was a bank. This room was designed for like 12 people to be in it. It was the board of directors room, and now you've got max of 70-something people. I hope you find a way to do it, but we've been trying it for a long time. But in general, it's usually we ask people to move out of the way, and they've just been in the second or third row to do that. So it'd be big enough so the people back here can see it. I don't know if that helps.
I know it would be a little bit of help. Now, you could go farther, and they make ceiling mount projectors where you could do that.
No, we tried that.
That's an issue.
Because it's not, the ceiling mount ones are usually for a ceiling that's taller.
Mhm.
And you may be able to do it each year. We try to look into it, but you end up having the problem that comes down like this, and then the people's heads in the front end up taking up a third of the screen.
Okay.
Where you're going. Usually if you have a room where you project something to the ceiling, it's not this low. I mean, a bunch of you guys who are tall, you can probably touch the ceiling. That's usually not a room that you can do projector stuff. Or you ask people to not be in front of the screen. You have no way of doing that because you barely have enough room to fit people in there. Once again, you can try it every time and see what you do, but we've always had an issue because you need the screen to be a certain size so everybody can see it. If you take that screen and move it to the front, you'll instantly see everybody's head in the way. You start projecting either way, you know, you'll see their shadow go across there. So we've tried it, and yeah, you can hang it in there, and more power to you. I'd love to try it again. We just weren't willing to commit to the money and then have it not work.
Yeah, I understand, I'm just looking at options here.
Yeah.
And if we were to mount it where Leo was, we could put the screen right about here,
Right.
won't be an issue, so, in someone's way. It'll be a manual pull-down screen, won't be a motorized one, but it'll be out of the way where it's not out of steam.
I think you tried it.
Mr. S.
Thank you, Chairman. Bob, have you thought about a track mount center?
Meaning on the ceiling tracking?
Right. That way, it could be mounted up there on the track, it could be slid one way or the other, and it can be turned. We put one up at the school about 2 months ago.
Was it motorized or was it?
No,
Okay.
it's all manual.
My concern about that would be pulling on it and pulling the ceiling grid, but if it worked, we'll try it, I mean, we'll look into it. But the cost is not prohibitive, I mean, it's fairly reasonable, so we can go ahead and do it.
You know, I think that'd be helpful. I think the committee wanted you to look into that, so we appreciate you doing that for us.
Last thing I have is I'm preparing to help load the public defender. I know that's coming very shortly. We're working with Brian Rates to get a microwave over there so their computers can communicate, and getting the custodial stuff together, and we're getting ready to prepare to move. Whenever they pick the day, we'll be ready.
Well, thank you, Mr. Hart, we appreciate that. Moving on to old business, just to give you an update, with this, blank mind right here. The stimulus package, we had a couple months, a month ago or so, the chairman came to us about the courthouse, put together a plan for that. I was working with the Public Building Commission. So, for next month, I think we're gonna put, he wants to put on the agenda to have Kimmy Group come and give us a report to start that process back, to go back over the report, to make sure what we're doing, we're all on board with. Because if something does happen, we wanna make sure that we're going in the right direction. You have anything you wanna add to that, Chairman?
Yeah, again, just as a follow-up and asking for some guidance from this committee and then on to the full board. Yes, the application that was submitted to Congressman Halverson's office, which initially we thought was stimulus money, turns out is more probably just federal appropriation process, normal appropriation process. The application that was submitted, as far as the cost structure, was based on the preliminary concept plans done by Kimmy 2 years ago, Kimmy and Associates, which was an outgrowth of the space needs study. Well, I'm a little uncomfortable because the board really hasn't probably commented on that concept, that plan, in terms of how that might fit in as far as the building and adjacent to the courthouse and all that. I mean, this board hasn't had much opportunity to comment on that. So we need to get ourselves involved in that process before we get much further, because the next step probably is to go ahead and start formulating some more detailed plans, not full drawings, but at least to the point where we could hand off, if and when the day ever comes that we see an opportunity, we want to be able to hand off a drawing to a design and build committee, who could then have a competition for competing design and so forth. But they need detailed enough drawings to get to that point. So the Public Building Commission is suggesting maybe they'd be willing to go ahead and start that process, but we need to make sure we're all on the same page in terms of what we want. So again, I thought next month would be an opportunity to have Kimmy and Associates back here, along with Dick Sims, who locally has been helping us out on that project, and talk to this committee about what those plans were at that time, and does this fit in with our desire.
I think that's a good idea to go and be as prepared as possible, and also this report was several years ago to make sure that our needs haven't changed, to make sure that we're progressing in the right way. And if there are need changes, this is the time to reassess that. So I think that's a good move, and we can move forward with that. Is there there any other old business from anybody else? Ms. Bernard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can we have public access on the agenda next month?
We can talk about that, I think we can look into that.
I would like that on the agenda. I know there was some talk about forming a subcommittee. I would like to serve on the subcommittee. Could even meet right after the regular committee, so there's no additional cost. But we've been discussing this issue, I believe, going on 3 years now. So I'd like to see if we can get that committee going and get some movement going. Because even there's a lot of great stories that aren't being told, a lot of good projects. Print media is declining. So there's people are really less and less about what's going on locally, and I just think it's something we need to move on. So if we could have it on the agenda next month, thank you.
I think we can look into that. I know one thing we're all cognizant about is cost. I think that's the biggest question that we need to get answered, because everybody has a different opinion on that. So we want to make sure that also, if there's any coordination that we can do, obviously I'll need to talk with the chairman and Mr. Nicholas to make sure that we're doing what we want to do, but also coordination, because there are with the villages, with the local universities, colleges that are here, to see if we can tap into those resources as well to keep our costs down.
Thank you. And I agree, we need to see if there we can have a collaborative effort here. But getting it started is as simple as an insertion point, which is about maybe $15,000 per Comcast when Greg Golemka was here. And that was, I think, almost 2 years ago. But the insertion point is not a major issue, as far as I can see, with cost-wise. And we've got auditoriums at KCC. They've got broadcasting capabilities there. Olivet has broadcasting capabilities. And I think we can pull together some talented people to make it work. And there's no need to spend a lot of money, but I think given that what people are paying in cable fees, because the cable companies use our right-of-ways to make money. They lay their cable down in those, on the right-of-ways along the road. And so they pay governments a franchise fee for their ability to make a profit. And I know we've been using the money for general fund and things like that, but I would like to see some of that money come back into the community in the form of public access so that people can be better informed and just be all around better citizens. I think it's an important part of the civic dialogue to have that public access in place.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else with old business? Chairman Foster.
If I could follow up on that, I had been thinking about this, and I think maybe the first step in the process might be that with your direction, we need to maybe visit our neighbors, the municipalities, and community college, and start, gauge some interest without having a big meeting. We'll just do some visiting, and let's gauge some interest with those entities and see what we can work out in terms of partnership. And I still think that's a goal of this, is to get everybody involved and have a true community service. And first step in that, I think, is to get some support. And yes, and start formulating a budget and see what cost will be. It may be as simple as an insertion point, but we also have to figure out where that's going to be and who's going to man it, and what ongoing costs we're going to have if we're going to do it right.
Right. I think the big question is not only the cost, but if it only is an insertion point, but how it's going to be managed. We want to make sure we have all the plans in place that it's going to be operated the right way. Who's going to control the content that's going to be placed on there, those type of things. So make sure that we have all of our policies and procedures in place also.
Thank you. Mike, I think that's an excellent idea, and I think one thing we could do, we could kind of look at building this on the same model that we use for GIS, where the county starts it and people start coming on board, because if we wait for each municipality's service agreement to terminate with each cable company, we'll never get this going. But if we start, and then people can join as it goes along. Another thing that, with public access, you can appoint a nonprofit board, just like we have different boards, like for the Regional Planning Commission, Health Department. You can appoint a board, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are wonderful templates out there that we can use for bylaws and govern what goes onto the, what can go on to be broadcast. Like People TV in Atlanta, they have a very comprehensive thing. So I know in the past, a lot of red herrings have been thrown up as to why public access is so bad, but, you know, I think a lot of those fears are overblown, and there are safeguards in place that you can use, so I'd like to see this on the agenda next month, and then maybe, Mike, if you would like to set up some tours, so that, and Gary Wright's been very helpful at the KCC, so, I think it's time to get going, and I think the Community Arts Council has also expressed interest, so I think you'll find a group of individuals that would be interested, so we don't have the burden on the board members, if that's also a concern. So I just hope we can continue proceeding with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Any other old business? Moving on to new business. Anything, anybody have new business? Mr. McClung.
Just an observation, the area where the public parks over there, there's a sign there right by the steps pointing to the treasurer's office and the admin buildings and all the different departments that are here. It looks like, I mean, that's getting pretty scraped up and a little bit illegible.
Yeah, it's faded very bad.
And I don't, you know, I mean, I don't think it's a huge project, and it may be something to throw on the radar at some point, see if we can get that maybe spruced up a little bit.
I'll get with the sign company. I'll get with the sign company. I don't think we need to replace the sign, just the lettering on the sign. So we'll look into
Absolutely.
that.
Where's it?
Thank you, Mr. McClung.
Just,
Any other new business? Oh,
it's just, some of the.
motion
Yeah, you're
to
right.
adjourn, Mr. Tripp. Any second to that motion? Mr. Hens. All those in favor?
I